New evidence of the coup attempt inside the White House. That's the context for what we're watching on the Hill, moments away from a criminal contempt vote for Trump chief of staff during the insurrection, Mark Meadows. The vote comes amidst damaging new evidence from Meadows' own emails and actions, and it reveals something that actually was not well understood before this committee began its probe.
Okay, so here's what nobody's talking about right now. We've got a Trump aide, somebody who was literally in the room where it happened, and they just walked into the Justice Department with boxes of evidence, like actual boxes. And you know what they said? Give me immunity and I'll tell you everything. Yeah, everything. Now, before you roll your eyes and think this is just another nothing burger, just another fake news story that's going to disappear in 48 hours, let me stop you right there, because what just dropped in the last 2 days is absolutely insane. We're talking about 165 pages of unsealed court documents. We're talking about Jack Smith, the special counsel, basically laying out a roadmap of what he thinks happened on January 6th and the weeks leading up to it. And here's the thing that's driving me crazy. The mainstream media is covering this like it's just another legal filing, just another court document, just another day in Washington. But this is not that. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. This is someone on the inside, someone who was there, someone who saw things, and they're saying, I'll talk if you protect me. Can you believe this? So let's back up for a second. Judge Tanya Chutkan, she's the federal judge handling one of Trump's cases. She just unsealed new evidence. And I'm not talking about like a few pages of testimony. I'm talking about a massive filing that details what prosecutors think was a private criminal effort to overturn the 2020 election. Those are their words, private criminal effort. Now you might be thinking, wait, didn't we already know about January 6th? Haven't we been talking about this for like 3 years now? And yeah, okay, you're right, we have.
Donald Trump's 2020 election interference case out of Washington, D.C. Judge Tanya Chutkan of the District of Columbia ordered the court to unseal evidence submitted by special counsel Jack Smith. Trump's lawyers pushed to delay this until after the presidential election, but the judge denied the request, writing in part that if the court withheld information that the public otherwise had a right to access solely because of the potential political consequences of releasing it, that withholding could itself constitute or appear to be election interference.
But here's what's different. This filing includes evidence that Jack Smith says proves Trump knew he lost, proves he was acting as a candidate, not as a president, and proves he tried to manipulate every stage of the electoral process. And this is where it gets wild, we find out that someone close to Trump, an aide who had access to classified documents, who was in meetings, who heard conversations, this person goes to the Justice Department and says, I want immunity, I want protection, and in exchange, I'll give you everything. The timing here is insane, like truly insane, because we're watching Trump deal with multiple legal cases right now. We're watching him navigate this second term as president, and suddenly the walls might be closing in from the inside, not from some external investigation, not from some political opponent, but from someone who was literally on his team. Come on, you can't write this stuff. So here's what we know so far. The special counsel's office has been investigating Trump's actions around January 6th for a while now. They've been building a case, they've been collecting evidence, and they've been trying to figure out whether Trump can claim presidential immunity for his actions. That's been the big legal question. Can a president do whatever he wants while in office and then claim he's immune from prosecution because he was acting in his official capacity? Well, Jack Smith's argument is pretty simple. He's saying, nope, not this time, because Trump wasn't acting as president when he tried to overturn the election. He was acting as a candidate who lost and didn't want to admit it. And now we've got this mystery aide, this person who apparently has evidence, who apparently knows things, who apparently is willing to spill everything if they get immunity from prosecution. The Justice Department said they have tons of evidence about Trump's intent and knowledge. Tons. That's a legal term now, I guess. And they're preparing to show that Trump knew exactly what he was doing, that he wasn't confused, that he wasn't misled, that he knew he lost the election and tried to stay in power anyway. This is the kind of story that makes Washington lose its mind. Because if this aide actually has what they say they have, if Jack Smith can actually prove what he says he can prove, then we're looking at a potential criminal case against the sitting president. A president who already served one term, left office, and then came back for a second term. Yeah, it's unprecedented. Yeah, it's complicated. And yeah, it's absolutely going to dominate the news cycle for weeks. So stick with me here, because we're going to break down exactly what's in these unsealed documents. We're going to talk about who this mystery aide might be. We're going to discuss what presidential immunity actually means, and we're going to figure out what happens next, because trust me, this story is just getting started. All right, so let's dive into what's actually in these court documents, because the details here are, there's something else. Jack Smith filed this massive 165-page brief with the court, and the whole point of this filing is to argue that Trump should not get presidential immunity for his actions around January 6th. Now, you might be wondering why this matters. Like, why does immunity even come into play here? Well, here's the deal. The Supreme Court ruled earlier this year that presidents do have some immunity for official acts they take while in office. Like if a president orders a military strike, or signs an executive order, or does something that's clearly part of their presidential duties, they can't be prosecuted for that later. That makes sense, right? You don't want every president getting sued or prosecuted the second they leave office for every decision they made. But, and this is a big but, the Supreme Court also said that immunity doesn't cover everything. It doesn't cover private acts, it doesn't cover criminal acts, and it doesn't cover things a president does as a candidate or as a private citizen. So Jack Smith's argument is basically this. Trump wasn't acting as president when he tried to overturn the election. He was acting as a candidate who lost and wanted to stay in power. Therefore, no immunity. And the evidence he's presenting is pretty damning. According to the unsealed documents, Trump was told by multiple people that he lost the election. His own attorney general said there was no widespread fraud. His own advisors said the numbers didn't add up. His own lawyers said the legal challenges weren't going anywhere. But Trump kept pushing. He kept claiming he won. He kept pressuring state officials to find votes. He kept pushing Vice President Pence to reject electoral votes on January 6th. And according to prosecutors, he knew the whole time that he lost. Like he actually knew. The filing includes testimony from witnesses who say Trump admitted privately that he lost, who say he knew his claims about fraud were bogus, who say he was just trying to stay in power by any means necessary. Now let's talk about this mystery aide for a second, because this is where things get really interesting. We don't know exactly who this person is yet. The reporting says it's someone who worked closely with Trump, someone who had access to classified documents, someone who was involved in meetings and discussions about January 6th and the aftermath. And this person went to the Justice Department and basically said, look, I know things, I saw things, I have documents, and I'll give you everything if you promise not to prosecute me. This is huge, like truly huge, because insider testimony is often the most powerful evidence in cases like this. It's one thing for prosecutors to piece together emails and phone records and public statements. It's another thing entirely to have someone who was in the room saying, here's what actually happened. And apparently this aide has information about classified documents too. Remember Trump had that whole situation at Mar-a-Lago where he kept classified documents after leaving office? Well, this aide might have evidence about that as well. The Justice Department said they have tons of evidence. And when you read through the unsealed filing, you start to see what they mean. They have testimony from White House staff. They have notes from meetings. They have text messages and emails. They have recordings of phone calls. One of the key pieces of evidence involves Mike Pence. Trump kept pressuring Pence to reject electoral votes on January 6th, but Pence kept telling him he didn't have that authority. The vice president's role in counting electoral votes is ceremonial. He can't just decide which votes count and which don't. But Trump didn't care. According to the filing, Trump told Pence multiple times that he needed to do this, that he had to do this. And when Pence refused, Trump allegedly said to him, "You're too honest. You're too honest." Think about that for a second. The president of the United States is pressuring his vice president to do something unconstitutional. And when the vice president says no, the response is, "You're too honest." That tells you everything you need to know about what was going on here. The filing also details how Trump's team tried to create fake electors in multiple states. These were people who would claim to be the official electors even though they weren't. The plan was to create confusion and give Pence an excuse to delay or reject the real electoral votes. Like they actually organized fake elector slates in 7 different states. They had these people sign documents claiming they were the legitimate electors, and they tried to send these fake certificates to Congress. This wasn't some spontaneous thing. This wasn't some confusion or misunderstanding. According to prosecutors, this was a coordinated effort to overturn the election results, and Trump was at the center of it. Now here's where the immunity argument gets really interesting. Trump's lawyers are saying that everything he did was part of his official duties as president, that he was exercising his authority to investigate election fraud, that he was fulfilling his constitutional obligation to ensure a fair election. But Jack Smith is saying nope, not even close. because investigating election fraud is one thing, trying to overturn legitimate results is another. And Trump crossed that line. The filing argues that Trump was acting as a candidate, not as a president. His motivation was to stay in power. His goal was to win at any cost. And none of that falls under presidential immunity. Judge Chutkan now has to decide how to handle all this evidence. She has to figure out what testimony can be used at trial. She has to determine which witnesses can testify. And she has to rule on the immunity question. And whatever she decides, it's going to be a huge deal. Because if she rules that Trump doesn't have immunity, then this case moves forward. Then we're looking at a potential criminal trial. Then we're looking at a sitting president facing serious charges for actions he took during his first term. The political implications here are massive. We're talking about a president who already served one term, left office, and then came back for a second term. And now he might face criminal prosecution for what he did between those two terms. Can you believe we're even having this conversation? But here's what makes this even more complicated. Trump supporters see all of this as a witch hunt. They see it as Democrats and the deep state trying to take him down. They see it as political persecution. And Trump himself keeps claiming that everything he did was legitimate, that he was fighting for election integrity, that he was standing up for millions of Americans who believed the election was stolen. But the evidence that's coming out paints a very different picture. It shows someone who knew he lost, who was told by his own people that he lost, and who tried to overturn the results anyway. That's not fighting for election integrity. That's trying to stay in power illegally. And if this mystery aide really does have the evidence they claim to have, if they really can prove Trump's intent and knowledge, then this could be the beginning of the end for him legally. Now let's talk about the broader context here. Because this isn't happening in a vacuum, Trump is currently serving his second term as president. He's dealing with multiple legal cases. He's got federal charges. He's got state charges. He's got civil cases. And through all of this, he's still running the country. He's still making policy decisions. He's still meeting with foreign leaders. He's still signing bills into law. It's an absolutely bizarre situation. Like there's no precedent for this. We've never had a sitting president facing this many legal challenges while actively serving in office. And now we've got this mystery aide coming forward, this insider who might have the keys to everything, this person who could potentially provide the evidence that ties it all together. The question is, what exactly do they know? What documents do they have? What conversations did they witness? And most importantly, why are they coming forward now? Because timing matters here. This person could have come forward months ago, could have come forward years ago, but they're doing it now. And that raises some interesting questions about what changed. What made them decide that now was the time to cooperate? What are they afraid of? What are they trying to protect themselves from? We'll have to wait and see what happens next. Okay, so let's break this down into simple terms, because there's a lot happening here and it's easy to get lost in all the legal jargon and political spin. First, what exactly is Jack Smith accusing Trump of doing? The core allegation is that Trump tried to overturn the 2020 election through illegal means, that he knew he lost, that he was told repeatedly by his own people that he lost, and that he tried to stay in power anyway through a combination of pressure on state officials, fake elector schemes, and ultimately the events of January 6th. This isn't about whether Trump had the right to challenge election results in court. Candidates do that all the time. This is about what prosecutors say was a criminal conspiracy to overturn legitimate results through fraud and intimidation. The prosecutors are arguing that Trump targeted every stage of the electoral process. He pressured state officials to change vote counts. He organized fake elector slates. He pressured the Justice Department to declare fraud that didn't exist. He pressured Mike Pence to reject legitimate electoral votes. And when all of that failed, he allegedly incited a mob to storm the Capitol. Like this wasn't just one action. This was a coordinated, multi-pronged effort, according to prosecutors. And they say they have evidence to prove it. Second, what's this immunity issue all about? Trump's lawyers are arguing that he can't be prosecuted for actions he took as president. They're saying that presidents need immunity to do their jobs without fear of prosecution. And they're claiming that everything Trump did around the election was part of his official presidential duties. But Jack Smith is arguing that Trump wasn't acting as president. He was acting as a candidate. His goal wasn't to faithfully execute the laws. It was to stay in power. And that's not covered by presidential immunity. The Supreme Court has said that presidents have immunity for official acts, but not for private criminal conduct. So the question becomes, was Trump acting in his official capacity, or was he committing crimes as a private citizen? Judge Chutkan has to answer that question. And whatever she decides will have huge implications. If she rules that Trump's actions were official acts, then he gets immunity, and this case probably falls apart. But if she rules that he was acting as a candidate, not as a president, then this case moves forward, and we're looking at a potential criminal trial. And based on the evidence that Jack Smith has laid out, it seems pretty clear that Trump was acting in his own personal interest, not in the interest of the country, not as president, but as a candidate who wanted to win at any cost. Third, who is this mystery aide, and what do they know? We don't have a name yet, but reporting suggests it's someone who worked closely with Trump, someone who had access to sensitive information, someone who was involved in meetings and discussions about January 6th and the classified document situation. This person apparently went to the Justice Department seeking immunity. That means they're worried about their own legal exposure. They think they might have committed crimes or been involved in criminal activity, and they're willing to cooperate if the government promises not to prosecute them. Insider testimony like this can be incredibly powerful because this isn't someone on the outside looking in. This is someone who was there, who saw things, who heard things, and who can provide firsthand evidence of what Trump knew and when he knew it. Think about what this person might be able to testify to. They might have been in the Oval Office when Trump was plotting strategy. They might have heard Trump admit that he knew he lost. They might have documents showing the coordination of the fake elector scheme. They might have evidence about the classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. This could be the smoking gun that prosecutors have been looking for, the insider witness who can tie everything together and prove Trump's criminal intent. Fourth, what happens next? Well, Judge Chutkan has to rule on the immunity issue. That could take weeks or even months. Once she rules, whichever side loses will probably appeal. So this could go back to higher courts, including potentially the Supreme Court again. In the meantime, the investigation continues. More evidence could come out. More witnesses could cooperate. And this mystery aide could provide testimony that changes everything. Trump is obviously fighting all of this. He's claiming it's all political persecution. He's saying the Justice Department is weaponized against him and his supporters are rallying around him. But here's the reality. The evidence that's been unsealed is pretty damning. We're not talking about vague allegations. We're talking about detailed testimony from people who were there. We're talking about documents and recordings and text messages. There's a text message from one of Trump's lawyers saying that the fake elector plan was not legally sound. Another aide testified that Trump was told the fraud claims were false. Multiple witnesses say Trump knew he lost and kept pushing anyway. That's not nothing. That's not a witch hunt. That's evidence. And if this mystery aide really does have more evidence, if they can fill in more gaps, if they can prove Trump's intent beyond any doubt, then we're looking at a very serious legal situation. Now let's talk about why this matters beyond just Trump personally. This is about whether a president can try to overturn an election and get away with it. This is about whether there are any real consequences for trying to stay in power illegally. This is about the future of American democracy. Because if Trump can do what he's accused of doing and face no consequences, then what's to stop the next president from trying the same thing? What's to stop future candidates from refusing to accept legitimate election results? The precedent we set here matters. It matters a lot. And here's what really gets me. We're not just talking about some abstract legal theory. We're talking about real actions that happened. We're talking about fake electors who signed fraudulent documents. We're talking about pressure campaigns on state officials. We're talking about a mob that attacked the Capitol. These things actually happened. This isn't speculation. This isn't conspiracy theory. This is documented reality. Trump supporters will say this is all politically motivated, that Democrats just want to take him down, that the Justice Department is corrupt. And look, I get why people feel that way. The timing is suspicious. The politics are complicated. But here's the thing. Jack Smith was appointed as special counsel specifically to investigate these issues independently. He's not some Democratic operative. He's a career prosecutor with a track record of going after corruption on both sides. And the evidence he's presenting isn't made up. It's testimony from Trump's own people. It's documents from Trump's own White House. It's recordings of Trump's own words. So yeah, this is a big deal. A really big deal. We're watching a former president who came back for a second term, potentially facing criminal charges for trying to overturn an election. We're watching insider witnesses come forward with evidence. We're watching the Justice Department say they have tons of proof of criminal intent, and we're watching it all play out in real time. The next few weeks are going to be crucial. Judge Chutkan's ruling on immunity will set the stage for everything that comes after. If she rules against Trump, this case moves forward aggressively. If she rules for him, well, we might be back at square one. But based on the evidence that's already public, based on what we know about what prosecutors have, I wouldn't bet on Trump getting immunity. This mystery aide could be the key to everything. Their testimony could fill in the missing pieces. Their documents could provide the smoking gun. Their cooperation could lead to more witnesses coming forward. Because here's the thing about insider witnesses. Once one person flips, others often follow. Once someone breaks ranks and says, I'm not going down for this, other people start thinking maybe I should protect myself too. And if that happens, if more Trump aides start cooperating with prosecutors, then this whole thing could snowball very quickly. We're potentially looking at a cascade effect here. One witness leads to another. One piece of evidence reveals another. And before you know it, the entire operation gets exposed. Now let's think about what this means for Trump politically. He's serving his second term right now. He's got an agenda he's trying to push. He's got policies he wants to implement. But how can he govern effectively when he's constantly dealing with legal issues? How can he focus on running the country when he's worried about going to trial? How can he maintain credibility on the world stage when foreign leaders know he's under criminal investigation? It's a nightmare scenario for Trump personally, for his administration, for the country. And here's what's really wild. We don't even know if this mystery aide is the only one. There could be other insiders waiting to come forward. There could be other witnesses who are watching this unfold and thinking, maybe I should cooperate too. Like, imagine you're someone who worked in Trump's White House. You saw things, you heard things, you maybe even participated in things, and now you're watching this aide get immunity in exchange for testimony. Wouldn't you start thinking about your own legal exposure? Wouldn't you start wondering if you should get ahead of this before it's too late? That's the domino effect that prosecutors are hoping for. That's why insider witnesses are so valuable, because they don't just provide evidence, they encourage other insiders to come forward. So keep your eyes on this story, because it's not going away. It's only going to get bigger. More evidence will come out, more witnesses will testify, and we're going to learn a lot more about what really happened on January 6th and in the weeks leading up to it. The mystery aide is just the beginning. The unsealed documents are just the start, and Jack Smith clearly thinks he has enough evidence to prove his case. We'll see if he's right. But based on what we know so far, this could be the most consequential legal case in American history. A sitting president facing criminal charges for trying to overturn an election, an insider witness offering evidence for immunity, and a Justice Department saying they can prove criminal intent. Yeah, this is wild, and it's only going to get wilder. The legal machinery is in motion, the evidence is piling up, the witnesses are coming forward, and Trump is running out of options to delay or derail this. Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this story is about to unfold, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. This is the kind of story that defines presidencies, that shapes legacies, that determines how history remembers people. And right now, it's not looking good for Trump.